Good evening, everyone. We'd like to go ahead and call tonight's special board meeting to order. Renee, if you would, show all board members present. And I would like to ask for something a little different this evening. If you would please join me in just a few moments of silence before we say the pledge in recognition of the victims in Connecticut. Thank you. If you would stand and join in the pledge with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time we need to approve tonight's agenda. Dr. Mellon, do you have any changes that you need to make?
Board, on action item 2, related to the high school tennis shelter, I also like to recognize in there that there would be an award, awarding the construction project to DuPont property for $48,700. And that was not in the initial information we presented to you. We'll go into more detail at the time.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? And opposed? All right.
One last one.
Do we have any public comments this evening? All right. So then next we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Pavey. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Satterley, thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
We are not allowed to pull anything off this then?
If you had wanted to, Mrs. Kraft, under the approval of the agenda. Yes, ma'am. All in favor? And opposed? And one abstention, Mr. Gilbert? All right, thank you. And next would be gifts to buildings. Mr. Pavey, would you like to take that one this evening?
Well, I would be happy to. Looks like for the week of 12/18/2012, we brought in $5,488 into the corporation. We had a couple of pretty large ones. The U.S. Tennis Association to Jeffersonville High School for $2,500. We also had Eagle Flight Logistics for the junior ROTC for Jeffersonville High School, $1,500. And we had $300 for the Fund for the Arts for River Valley Middle School. And just, again, very much appreciate all of the gifts that come in to the schools. They're very helpful. As you know, we have tight budgets, and this helps us move our agenda further along with the extra revenue. So thank you to everyone who contributed.
Motion to approve. Mr. Satterley, is there a second? Mrs. Kraft, thank you. Any discussion on gifts to buildings? All right, all in favor? All right, 7-0, thank you. Action items, alternative ed proposal authorization.
Board, as you recall, at our last board meeting, Mr. Hare presented you with an alternative education proposal. We're looking to upgrade the program and enhance the program beginning next semester. And so at this time, I'd ask that you consider approving that recommendation to enhance our alternative education program starting second semester.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, 7-0. Thank you. And next is the tennis shelter.
Board, the tennis shelter, if you remember, you had to work through the baseball hitting facility here not too long ago. The tennis shelter at the high school is a project that also began a couple of years ago. The individuals helping to fund that project, the parents and so on, have raised over $100,000 for that facility, but the facility is not complete. And in fact, there are aspects of that facility that are not done to the quality that it needs to be done. Board, if you remember, we said, as it relates to the baseball facility, that we would no longer be going through this process again, that if there is a legitimate need to upgrade facility, that it would be done through our regular capital projects approach. But this tennis facility was in line with the baseball facility. It needs to be completed. And so we're recommending tonight a couple of things. The tennis boosters have agreed that the additional cost, which comes up to $48,700, that's DuPont Properties. We went through a quote process, and they were the low quote. But DuPont Properties at $48,700, that is what's required to totally complete that project. In meeting with the tennis coach, Coach Riley, the tennis boosters have agreed to a contract where they have agreed to pay $5,000. They've already submitted that payment, and the remaining $45,000 will be paid $9,000 a year over 5 years. And that's similar to the baseball agreement where we were paying $35,000, which is $7,000 over 5 years. So we're trying to get all this accomplished, everything paid off by the boosters, but we're giving them 5 more years. But we're paying for the project in advance, so it's done with quality. And again, Board, I said that we wouldn't bring this again to you. At the time, I should have said after we bring the tennis facility here to you. But that's where we are to get this project completed. So I'm asking you to approve the agreement with the tennis boosters, as well as the awarding of the project to DuPont Properties to get the job done.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Satterley, thank you. Any discussion?
Well, the U.S. Tennis Association has given $2,500 too, so obviously it's going to meet their specs, and they're going to be pleased to do that, so that was good.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, not on this specifically, but on policy, how we got into these things. Is there a policy that states that these things should not be started and was disregarded, or do we need to adopt a policy that says no buildings will be done by anyone other than Gregor?
We don't currently have a specific policy in this regard, but it may not be a bad idea just to look into that for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because in past experience, I've never been engaged in this kind of a process. It's always been something, if a school needed something, then it goes on to a capital projects plan. You get your cost factors, you get your architect involved, you go through a process of approving. And so this was unique in my experience. So to have policy that's there to also protect it from happening again makes some sense.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it unique. So.
Okay. Understanding.
Any other discussion?
Dr. Miller, we had 3 bids on that, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this was low, I think you said that,
The
right?
low bid was,
Okay.
yes, DuPont Properties. Okay. And I believe you have some fact sheets in front of you that help detail the different quotes and then the specifications of the job.
I'm sorry, didn't see that. Thank
My
you.
fault, I should have brought it to your attention.
I see that now, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Next is the tax anticipation warrant bid award.
I'll have Dr. Dykel come forward, Board.
Okay, we're asking permission from the board to approve an $8 million loan with Centier Bank. We actually had 5 bidders, and the bids ranged anywhere from a low of 0.85% up to a high of 1.91%. So to borrow $8 million will cost the corporation $67,627.40, and we're recommending that it go to Centier Bank in Northwest Indiana. Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley.
Okay.
Second by Mrs. Kraft. Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, why did this check credit only bid on a certain amount of it?
Sometimes that's all they can actually go for is a
Okay,
certain
so
dollar
that was why
amount,
they
and
did
we
that.
like to give it to one vendor if at all possible.
There's a big difference,
Yes.
so we're sure that's lowest and best. I'm sure it's lowest. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the retirement incentive.
Board, at this time, I'd like Mrs. Lewis, our general counsel, to come forward. We've been working pretty diligently on the retirement incentive, and she's been a person, along with Dr. Dykle, who's really worked hard at this. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you and good evening. Certainly it takes a village when we're working on putting together a project of this type, but we're really excited about being able to be in a position to offer a retirement incentive this year, and it's kind of a one-time opportunity. We have funds in a pot of money that we have from years ago when we did buyouts of unfunded liabilities that have accumulated, and so they can only be used for retirement incentive purposes or retirement-related purposes. So we have been working with our GCEA Teachers Union to come up with an incentive plan. We took this to corporation discussion and kind of laid out the incentive. We really have two classifications of individuals: those who would be principals, assistant principals, classified administrators, certified supervisors, or teachers. They would be in Group A. The other group would include classified directors, classified administrators, or executive assistants. And in board docs, we provided you with an incentive, but then after receiving some questions and concerns about item 6 on the incentive on how we were going to determine eligibility as far as who gets the money, because currently we have funds available in this account to fund 40 persons who are in Group A and 15 persons in Group B, with a little bit of flexibility for some adjustments if we don't get that many in both groups. But we initially talked about a first-come, first-served basis. That was problematic as far as the timing, how people that were teachers and expected to be in the classrooms could participate in the first-come, first-served. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and looked at that provision again, and we are recommending approval of this retirement incentive with the revisions to the funding method, which basically says that there'll be 40 employees in Group A, 15 in Group B, who apply for the incentive and are eligible in accordance with the guidelines would be funded. If more than 40 in Group A or more than 15 in Group B apply by the deadline indicated, then funding will be based on seniority. And seniority in this agreement is defined as meeting the eligibility requirements of the incentive and the employee's total number of continuous years of service in Greater Clark. Work in another school corporation will not be considered. And we also have kind of an out provision that says if persons are determined ineligible who have applied for the retirement incentive, or we don't have enough funds to fund everyone that would apply, and we look at the seniority first, they would have the option to withdraw their retirement notification if they do so by April 1st. So we've tried to look at going to seniority as a more equitable way of determining eligibility if we get more than 40. And also we're going to give those persons that are not eligible based on these criteria for the monies to withdraw their applications if they do so by April 1st. And Frank Benton's here this evening, and we kind of had last-minute discussions this afternoon. And have I explained this and expressed this correctly, Frank? Okay. So our recommendation this evening would be to approve the retirement incentive for the 2012-13 year. The parameters are set out in the document that you have been, the updated document you were provided with, and we're excited. We think it's a good thing. We think it's going to give some recognition and thanks to those persons who have worked for Greater Clark the longest and are ready to put themselves in a retirement mode. We're really excited about this opportunity. This is not something that's probably going to come around again as far as retirement opportunities, financial incentives in a long time. It's not an early retirement incentive. It's actually an incentive for those people who currently meet Greater Clark's retirement eligibility and TERF or PERF retirement, full TERF or PERF retirement eligibility. Any questions?
there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Mr. White, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Mrs. Kraft, did you have a question?
No, I said I'm a third.
Okay. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Next is the contract with Roof Management Incorporated at New Washington Elementary.
I'll turn this over to Dr. Dykel, please.
Okay, as you're aware of, on March 2nd, 2012, we had tornadoes that came through southern Indiana and damaged New Washington Elementary School with a lot of hail. Negotiations have been ongoing with Mr. Hopgood in the back there with Indiana Insurance as far as what kind of roof we were going to replace it with. And we've agreed now through insurance, Indiana Insurance, that they're going to replace it. It's going to be in excess of probably $250,000, so we're going to have to get a architect/engineer to do the drawings on it. So we're coming to you here for the first part of it to ask permission to go with Roof Management Incorporated for a cost of $34,700 to do the drawings. We're going to go with a spray-on polyurethane roof for New Washington, so it'll match the high school. So that's what we're asking permission for.
Motion. Is there a second? Mrs. Kraft, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Next we have the Auxiliary Services Sprinkler System.
Dr. Dykel.
I'll just stay up here. Next one we have is, as you're aware of, we're going to look at putting the alternative school at Auxiliary Services, and since it will now become a classroom, a school building, we have to put sprinkler system in there. So Mr. Hopgood has got estimates here, or quotes I should say, and we're asking permission to award it to Landmark Sprinkler at their low quote of $34,929. So you can see they're relatively close.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? And opposed? 6-1.
Thank you.
All right. And next we need to reapprove the 2013 school year balance calendar showing Veterans Day as an off day in November. Is there a motion? Mrs. Kraft, is there a second? Mr. White, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? All right. County's resolution revoking offer to purchase Cordon Porter.
Mrs. Lewis.
Thank you. As you all will remember, in March of 2012, the county commissioners offered to purchase the old Cordon Porter building located at 601 East Court Avenue, and the board approved that sale, and payment terms were established. After the approval, we received notification from the county that they needed to delay making payments on the purchase until late November of this year. Also during that time, we welcomed Dr. Mellon as our new superintendent of schools, and he had the opportunity to go down and visit the old Cordon Porter building and saw some potential for that site, and really asked the county if they would reconsider their offer to purchase and allow us to continue the ownership of that facility so that we would have a piece of land in our downtown area if we decided to do some building or remodeling for some of our programs at a later date and time. The county approved their resolution in November of this year, on November 20th, agreeing to rescind its offer to purchase the property, and all I need you all to do this evening is just approve their withdrawal of the offer to purchase so that we will have that properly reflected in our minutes for historical purposes in the future.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
No hesitation.
Second.
Second, Mr. Satterley. Thank you. Any
Kevin.
questions or discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mellon.
And next is the CBS outdoor digital billboard contract.
Board, recently, Mrs. Bojorquez approached me. As you know, we had a billboard that's still up, just off of 265, and we had paid for that, but it still remains up. And so we're getting more than our money's worth out of that situation. But CBS approached us because there's a new digital billboard that is being erected on I-65 and will begin operating on December 31st. It's a digital billboard, and so here we have an opportunity on I-65. It's on the east side of the road and around Eastern, and it would allow us to be able to have 8 different messages that would circulate through the digital board. So basically, every minute, Greater Clark County Schools would be able to promote an aspect of our school corporation. So whether it's kindergarten with a premier week that we're currently organizing, or it's our foundation in our efforts that we're doing there, but it gives us several opportunities to sort of get us out in front. And the data is pretty impressive because the north-facing panel has approximately 285,000 eyes seeing that per week. And the south-facing would be about 385,000. And so it's $6,600 for 12 weeks, so it's $2,200 a week. That would be for both sides of the board. And this is a deal, a discounted rate, because the board is just beginning. So we have dollars available to pay it. What we want to do is also approach our foundation, because we want our foundation to see if it's something that it would be able to utilize and help to support financially as well, so that our school corporation wouldn't be 100% committed to the $6,600, but perhaps the foundation would see a benefit in this process as well. And so it's a 3-month, if we were to take out a one-page ad in the local newspaper, it'd be one day, $1,800. So if we wanted to promote our premier week for kindergarten and take out a full-page ad in the newspaper, it's $1,800, appears once. Here, this would be appearing multiple messages over a 3-month period. And so I guess tonight, we believe that as we're trying hard, as we look at our strategic plan, and our SWOT analysis shows that community perception is a major area that we need to focus on, then anything we can do with reasonable financial commitment to promote the positive, we think we more than get our money's worth out of that scenario. So I'm asking you, in order for us to take advantage of this, we need to let CBS know soon, so that we can be ready to roll on December 31st. So I'm making a recommendation tonight that you would approve the CBS outdoor billboard contract.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Pavey, thank you. Any questions?
Yes. I think we're a little premature on this. I've investigated fairly thoroughly, and there hasn't been a variance filed. You haven't asked for a variance from the town. So whoever has this board doesn't have permission from the town to even operate it yet.
I don't know the answer to that
Okay,
question. We've been dealing with the representative from CBS, and has he given you any indication that, and they have a go-live date of December 31st, right?
That won't
Okay.
happen unless they've gone to the building commissioners in Clarksville and gotten permission by the variance to have that period. I mean, it's not going to go period until that happens first.
We'll have it when it does.
That has to happen first.
We'll be ready when it does.
Yeah,
There it
really.
goes, right.
I'm just saying, it's not going to happen until you get the variance.
Contingent upon or subject to?
From the
Okay.
building commissioner.
Mr. Satterley, are you all right with amending your motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Well, just a comment. The wife and I had an opportunity to roll up and down 65 a couple of times this weekend, and it is an outstanding location. It's great visibility from both the north and southbound side, and I really think that this will be a great place for us to advertise. So again, if you get a chance to go out on 65, take a look at it, but it's very visible both directions. So.
Now, I've actually seen some of the active ones that are on 265, and they're very visible from a long distance, and they're sharp. They look really good. So, any other discussion? All in favor? And opposed? 6-1. All right, thank you. Next will be the approval of the purchase of wireless access points.
Ms. Schellenberg will help us with that, please.
As part of the activities that we applied for the Common School Loan, one of the activities was to complete the wireless infrastructures for all of our elementaries. We were approached by a relatively new vendor to this area, pretty prominent in the north. We've used Cisco products in all of our secondary schools, and Cisco is, kind of the name in the wireless world, and they basically we use their equipment for all of our closets, our infrastructures for our networks currently. Meraki is a new name to this area, but they are really targeting kind of small business, and they fit really nicely into the elementary school market. They approached us, and we went out for quotes. They came in $200,000 less than the next vendor, with a 10-year license. And what's unique about this product is that they manage it from the cloud. So this is really us kind of moving into a virtualization world with our elementaries, which we feel is a really good place to start with them. So what this does is it frees up dollars in Common School Loan that we would have used and can then shift that money towards hardware and student accessibility with equipment. So we would recommend the purchase of the Meraki system.
All right. Is there a motion?
I've been wanting this for so long.
Are you making the motion, Mrs. Kraft? All right. Is there a second?
The motion.
Mrs. Christensen, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. No discussion items tonight? All right. Next we have board reports or requests. Mr. Gilbert, do you have any reports or requests? Ms. Christensen?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I would like to request that the board relieve me of my duties and let my successor take over from here on out my job today. Everything else following the meeting will pertain to my successor, so thank you all.
Well, we can't do that. She has to be sworn in.
Well,
I
she's
can do that.
out there, but my job is done. Thank you all.
All right. Mr. White?
No, I do not, thank you.
Mrs. Kraft?
I have a kudos.
All right.
Listen up. Now, I just think we need to mention that the girls' basketball team took Saturday morning and served 150 people breakfast at the Loaves and Fishes. And I think that's something that's outstanding. I mean, I know they're tired and they've worked hard all week, and to go and do that for people who have nothing, to serve 150 breakfasts, I just thought we needed to mention that, okay?
All right.
So yay for the girls' basketball team.
Mr. Satterley?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Pavey?
Nothing.
All right. We'll move on to board planning, strategic planning update.
Board, we, as we are trying to do every month for you, we're trying to bring you up to speed. Fortunately, we have a couple of you that are on our strategic planning committee, but we wanted to just bring you up to speed, if we could, related to our goals. Step one for us after the SWOT analysis was the development of goals, and so in each of our subcommittees we've developed goals. And now these goals are not necessarily finalized, but in facilities and technology they're pretty close. So it's not to say things can't change, but the whole idea was let's get our goals pretty solid before we move on to action steps. So as you can see, the goals in facilities and technology, by August of 2014, equitable access to technology will be available to 100% of the district stakeholders, so that education is enhanced and learning is facilitated. So we're looking for making sure across all of our buildings that our students and staff have equitable access to technology. That's not the case currently. Number 2 is by the start of the 2018-19 school year, all facilities will provide and promote a safe and quality environment for the education of students as defined by the Long Range Facilities Plan. Well, obviously the safety piece goes without speaking after what's occurred recently in our country, but also we need to look across our entire all of our facilities in terms of what is needed to bring them to a level of quality that we expect for our students and staff and parents here in our school corporation. So that would be goal 2. Number 3 is by the end of each school year, Greater Clark County Schools will complete a district-wide evaluation and revision of current technology and facilities. So on an annual basis, we believe that we need to undergo an evaluation or review of where we are in terms of all of our facilities. So those are the goals, and again, each subcommittee has worked hard over the course of several meetings to come to this. And the next step would be to move into action steps for each of those goals. And the next area is finance. Number 1, by 2018, Greater Clark County Schools will have the state recommended 8% cash balance in the district's general fund. We have no cash balance in our general fund. So it is our plan to develop a specific financial plan to get us to that point by 2018, if not before. 8% is what's recommended. 8% of our roughly $70 million would be a $5.6 million cash balance. Number 2, by 2018, Greater Clark County Schools will have a 5% cash balance based on the total budget in the district's rainy day fund. If our total budget is roughly $100 million, then we'd like to see another $5 million in the district's rainy day fund. As you know, our rainy day fund probably year ending 2012 might be in the $1.5 million range. We are not where we need to be in terms of reserves, and so we definitely need to enhance. I believe our monthly bills are roughly about $6 million just to pay our bills. So what we're talking about with these two numbers would get us maybe 2 months of reserve, and I think it's recommended that you have 3. So, but at least to start in the right direction. Number 3, Greater Clark County Schools will be fiscally mindful stewards of all public funds as evidenced in local and state audits while maintaining high student achievement. We're audited every 2 years from the state. We want high-quality audits completed in that regard, and we also want to make sure that when we're fiscally mindful, we're also always keeping student achievement at the forefront. Number 4, Greater Clark County Schools is a significant partner as an economic driver in Clark County and will enhance partnerships with local taxing entities in the share of tax increment funding. TIF dollars. There are a lot of TIF districts in our area, in our school system, and we would like to put a presentation together eventually to approach them because as an economic tool, education is an economic driver. We believe that some of those dollars should come to our school corporation. Number 5, Greater Clark County Schools will advocate for realistic state funding for all educational programs. I think that's a continued job of all of us sitting here, our board members and myself, to advocate with our state legislators to do everything in our power to make sure that we're getting the funding we need for our general fund. And public relations and marketing. Now, these goals have been undergoing some revision. So these are not as maybe finalized as the other 2 areas. But this brings you up to speed with their thinking. The first goal is by 2018, Greater Clark County Schools will improve its community perception as defined by the district survey data. I mentioned before that has been a major issue, is our perception, and we want to make sure that we will improve it over time. We need to have specific action steps to help us get there. Number 2, Greater Clark County Schools will expand and enhance partnerships with families to retain current enrollment and to increase student population by 1% each year. Again, we want to make sure our families know how much we care about them and their students and their children. We want to keep them in our school system. And if through our efforts we can also be recruiting new families and being competitive for new families moving into the area, we want to do so. Number 3, by 2018, we will formalize partnerships with business and community organizations. And we're looking there to really enhance our college and career preparation program. Our goal is all students, when they graduate, will be accepted to a post-secondary opportunity. In order to help us make that happen, we're going to really have to build and formalize partnerships with not only our businesses but other community organizations. And the last area was student achievement and instruction. Number 1 goal, by 2018, our graduation rate will meet or exceed the state goal and ensure all graduates are accepted to post-secondary education or employment opportunities. So graduation rate is essential. As you know, we want to exceed the 90% graduation rate. We're just under 78% as a school corporation. We need to make some serious strides to get our students up to that level across our district. Number 2, by 2018, we will achieve and maintain an A rating as defined by the Indiana Department of Education. So if that current growth model system is still there, we believe we need to be an A school corporation, and our schools need to be A schools. Number 3, all certified staff will be rated as effective or highly effective using the district's evaluation system. You know, Board, the new law that's in the state, and we've been working very hard in our school system this year with our Teachers Association in terms of the model. We want effective and highly effective teachers, and the rest of our staff too, not just teachers. And number 4, Greater Clark County Schools will reflect a diverse faculty that recognizes and respects the broad cultural differences of our students. In our SWOT analysis, Board, I mentioned that diversity was thought of as a strength, it was thought of as a weakness, and it was thought of as a threat. The diversity of our student population was a strength. The lack of a diverse faculty was a weakness. And the fact that there's a perception that does exist that perhaps some people are more comfortable not being in a diverse environment, and therefore they're making choices to go elsewhere, that's a threat. And so we want to make sure that that's a goal that we're taking very seriously. So that gives you a sense of where we are. I'm proud of our people for all their efforts. We have had over 70 people at each Strategic Planning Committee meeting. A great facilitation by our executive team, and I feel the work that's been up to this point has been outstanding. So we look forward to bringing back maybe action steps by the end of next month.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Ballin on the strategic plan? I'll just say, I've had an opportunity to participate on the planning committee, and the dialogue has been amazing. You put a group of people together who are passionate and care about students, and what can come out of that is pretty powerful. So I appreciate the opportunity for the board to allow me to represent you all on the committee. Thank you.
Well, and I guess I want to echo that as well. I've been participating in that exercise, and it is truly amazing to watch the commitment of the folks that are participating in this team. I mean, these are 7 o'clock in the morning meetings, usually prior to some work days, and these folks come in even without a lot of coffee, and they're ready to go and going to breakout sessions, and some really, really good discussion. I mean, I've learned a ton just by listening to parents, students, and administrators about what's going on in the district and where we need to go. So very proud of the team that's been put together and the work that they've done. And Dr. Mellon, I want to thank you again for bringing that to us. So, welcome.
All right. Next. No policies tonight. We have a fund monitoring report.
At this time, Dr. Dyke will take over.
As we promised, at the second board meeting of every month, we will go over the fund monitoring report so you can see it. It's really long now. Not that one. No. Go to the general fund. Okay, if you can blow that up a little bit. Mainly look at November, because what we're going to really concentrate on is November. November we had 3 pays, so you'll see the expenditures a little bit higher for November. At the top part, you can see our revenue. We have no state taxes coming into that fund at all. So when you're looking at it, you know, we're just looking at the normal fees, state support, any grant money. One thing that we're not going to get in December is the $750,000 that I have projected in December for the impact aid for River Ridge. That's not going to come through. We ended up getting a new lady that's our liaison now from the federal government, and I think she knows less than I do about it. So it's almost going to be like a learning experience. Melanie's been working really hard with her. So I think we're going to have to, you know, lose that $750,000 in December. When you look at the projected cash balance that we're projecting in December now, Renee, could you go down a little bit? We're looking right now at about 2.4 million. Keep going. Right there. 2,415,000 is what we're projecting. Now remember, we've already moved 2,183,000 out of the general fund to the rainy day fund. I don't project now that we will need to use any more of the rainy day fund to save us. One thing that we will have is we had a fund that was established many years ago. It was the bridge to Social Security to get employees to retire, to pay them until Social Security. That fund over the years has grown to a deficit of $975,000. It's something that we have to wipe out. It's affecting our overall cash balance, and it's going down. I think this year, I think there was only like maybe $150,000 charged to it. Next year, we're projecting only about $75,000. This is still paying for people until they get Social Security. We've been written up in several state audits because of this. We have not been contributing to it. The deficit has been growing. So what I'd like to do is to come back to you and start using some of our cash balance to get that down to zero, so that in our next audit we are not cited again, because I think it's either 2 or 3 audits now, so it's either 4 or 6 years we've been cited for this big deficit. So we're projecting probably once we look at removing 750 from the revenue, that'll bring us down to 1.7, and then if we take the full 975, if we could do that or even close to it, we're going to be close to probably about 600,000 is what we're projecting right now. So that's the general fund. Any questions on that?
Do we have any plans to go with other corporations to go to the state and ask for some of the billions that they have in their rainy day fund?
In talking with our local legislator at one of our strategic plan sessions, he was very optimistic that we would get the money back this year
The
or
$3
next
million
year.
that they took?
300 million?
300,000, 350,000 total from state. He was very optimistic that we would see it back.
At least $3 million of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One payment.
that would be helpful.
It would be very helpful. I'm sure every school in the state would be happy.
But I'm thinking, are we doing that? Is every school in the state, are we sending somebody, and are we pressuring these people to do this?
Our legislators are being pressured by our by our lobbyists. You know, Superintendent's Association has theirs, school board has theirs, business managers have theirs.
I'm on the legislative committee. I know that, but I can't do it by although I do make a good case, but I can't do it by myself. I was just thinking if we united, when maybe took a day.
Mrs. Kraft, we do also have the joint school board,
Right.
West Clark, Floyd, Clarksville, and Greater Clark, that meets with our local legislators about once every 3 months. So trust me, we have been bending their ears.
What we need to do is get to the Marion County folks and the people that hold the strings.
Well, sitting there with a $2 billion cash balance that the state has,
Right.
it's going to be hard for them not to give it back to
Right.
the schools.
Right.
So.
Well, I hope it's very difficult.
I think that across our state, if all of us locally can make sure that our local legislators fully understand all the ramifications. So if that's being done around the entire state, as local legislators start coming together, and oftentimes there are superintendent days at the legislature. I've attended those in the past. there'll be opportunities for us to continue to put that kind of pressure on, because this will be a key. The biennial budget will be developed next spring. That will carry us through the next 2 years, and it's going to be critical that with our economy moving in a more positive direction, that there should be a higher level of commitment in the budget to education, K-12. And so this next spring, from this point through the spring, will be a vital time for that, to keep lobbying.
And the other thing, I was in Indianapolis December 12th for a school finance seminar, and Dr. Larry DeBoer is the analyst that usually gives all the information to the legislators. He projected about a 4%, a little bit over a 4% growth for the next 2 years, each of the next 2 years, and then when it came out in the newspapers, the LSA and their people said a modest growth of about 2.4%. So who knows what's going to happen. If the fiscal cliff hits us, we're going to go back into a recession. So we just don't know. If you can go to capital projects, the big sheets. Did you have capital projects too? On the
Oh, it's probably just scroll down.
I'm not going to talk about the debt service, the pension debt, because there's been no activity, hardly any activity in those. Those will only be done in January, June, July, and December. That's when we make our payments. Same thing with pension debt. Bus replacement, there's hardly anything going on there. It's just contracted payments that we're doing there. Capital projects, we're projecting go down a little bit more. We're projecting to end with a $626,000 balance. We think now that that's going to be a little bit less. Whatever money we have left in here cash, we will come back to you and transfer back to the rainy day fund to start building that up for 2013. So we think it'll be around $200,000 because we have a lot of encumbrances that we're trying to do. Like we found money now after Mr. Hobgood and I and Tricia and Joni met. We found some money at Jeff High that we could use for the roof project over there. So instead of taking it out of another fund, we're going to take it out of capital projects. So that's why some of this money will come down. So we think it'll be $250,000 that we can move into the rainy day fund. And then go to transportation operating. Now, on this one, we were thinking that we might have to dig into the rainy day fund, but I think we're going to be okay on this one. We should end up with a cash balance of about $350,000. We would like to move a portion of this over to the rainy day fund, and again, we will come back to you in January with that information once we finalize December. And that's kind of where we're at. So I'm very positive as far as our cash balances that we have right now. We didn't get hit as bad with the tax caps that we thought we were going to get hit, so that's a good sign. We won't know officially what our next tax caps will be, and remember Marvin told us in his presentation debt service and pension debt will not be hit with any of the tax caps, that whatever money is there is going to be absorbed by capital projects, bus replacement, and transportation operating, so there may be some bigger hits there. The projected 2013 tax cap that I saw from the LSA, and I don't know how accurate it is only about $1,670,000. So that's good news, and we just hope it stays that way. But we won't know until the tax bills are generated in April to see how that affects everything. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Overall, it looks pretty good.
Any questions or discussion on the budget? All right. Student achievement, our favorite topic.
I'd like to talk about student achievement. Board, if you remember, one of the things that we talked about a long time ago was the development of what we call a data dashboard. And this has been a project that's taken longer than we anticipated because for us to make sure that we're able to put our hands on the right information has been challenging. And we've had a lot of work that's been done not only by Ms. Schellenberg, but also by Karen Spencer, by Steve Cook, to help us to generate these reports. So we'll give a little presentation here. There are major criteria areas that we decide to look at, and these were decided upon by the fact that we are judged and evaluated by our public and by our state in these major categories. So reading, grades / credits, I-STEP, and then of course assessments, the growth model, college and career readiness, student engagement, discipline, survey data, and demographic data. So that's how we decide to set up the dashboards. Now, I know this is a lot of information, but I just want to point out, if you look at the structure of the dashboard, these dashboards will eventually be available to the public on our website. They'll be available at a corporation level. They'll also be available on a school level. We would like to, we're looking into using the Common School Fund to purchase monitors. So as you walk into schools, you see the dashboard up on electronic monitors, so it's out in front at all times. So if you look at reading at the elementary level, if you see the district average, you can see the state average if there is one. There's a district average, a district goal. The school average and school goal is something that each school would fill in. Then you have quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where do they stand? And then where's the data source? Where are we finding that data? So at a corporation level with reading, the SRI and Dibble's information says that 47.1% of our students were reading at level. The thing that's important to note is this is based upon sort of a beginning of the year. This is where they stand now, and will be evaluated through universal screening at the end of the year as well, and we'll anticipate that percentage going much higher. And the reason I say that is because of the next column down is reading. I read. And if you saw that last year, our third graders, 84% of our third graders were reading at level. Our district goal is 90%. You know, we want at least 90% of our kids reading at level or above. So I wouldn't get overly alarmed yet with that SRI data, because the key will be, where do we end the year? Because that's how they're being judged. Our students are being judged now based upon what the expectations are for them at the end of this year. So then you go to I-STEP, and I won't go through all the data, but you can see all of the averages in all those categories and what our goal is. And we've established what we believe is a realistic goal that pushes us in the right direction, but is realistic and reasonable for us to be able to move forward. So you can see that through all the I-STEP data. The growth model, you can see the state average. You can see where those benchmarks are. So, for example, percentage of students in the bottom 25% at high growth in language arts, the state wanted that to be greater than 42.5%. We were at 31.3%. So our district goal, obviously, based upon the state benchmark, is to get to at least 43%. Now, I think it's really good that we had 32%, almost 31% of our students at high growth. That was tremendous. Almost one of every 3 students was at high growth in our district. That, to me, is impressive. We didn't reach the state benchmark, but it's still impressive. So you can go down and see that whole growth model piece is exactly what those categories are that the state's looking for. And so we've established specific benchmark data and goals to help us reach in that area. If we go to the next slide. Student engagement data, what we decided to focus on was attendance. And the average daily attendance, our district average was 95.1. The state average is 96.1. Our district goal is 96%. That's outstanding, by the way. To me, anything over 95% is good. That's the expectation. We want to at least get to 96%. Look at the next one. Percentage of students with 95% attendance or greater. So based upon all the days they could be in school, how many students do we have at the elementary level that are in school 95% of the time? Now this data was at 74%. Our district goal is at least 80% as a starting point. We obviously want to get that higher. We have some students in our district who miss a lot of school. We have the majority of our students who miss very little school. The discipline data, I thought this was interesting. We're trying to keep looking at the positive discipline data. percentage of students with no behavioral referrals. The district average, 89%. Our district goal is 91%. 89% of our elementary students have never had a disciplinary referral. So that's what we're striving for, is to focus on the positive as it relates to this data. Then we have demographic data that's listed in some of these major categories, and that will be consistent in each of the dashboards, elementary, middle, and high. We'll go to the middle school. I'll just try to highlight some areas. The percentage of students reading at grade level, 62.7%. That district goal is 90. We're going to see where we stand at the end of the year. Look at algebra is one of our areas of focus at middle school. We had a district goal that 40% of our 8th graders would be enrolled in Algebra 1. We've met that goal. We think that that's a reasonable place to be looking to the future. Percentage passing 8th grade Algebra 1, look at that. 99% of our kids who take 8th grade Algebra 1 are passing. That's pretty impressive. And our percentage passing 8th grade algebra end of course exam is 92%. So that our 8th graders have to take and pass the state end of course exam that our high school Algebra 1 students have to take. So 92% of them are passing that exam as 8th graders. Very impressive. Then again, you can see the I-STEP data is listed and broken down, as is the growth model data that's there for you. And you can evaluate and look at that in greater detail later. But we try to set realistic goals. Student engagement data, you can see 67% of our students at the middle school level have 95% attendance or greater. So that percentage has decreased. That is a concern. We need to be looking at that. Attendance is key. As you know, that's not only a school skill, but that's a life skill. So we need to look at that as it relates to our program moving forward. Discipline data, percentage of students with no behavioral referrals, 66%. Now remember, 89% of our elementary had no referrals, 66% of our high school. So we need to be tracking that data, and we think that with our positive behavior interventions and support system, our impact program, that there'll be a greater emphasis on improving the behaviors of students in school as they get older. So that we'll be able to measure that. Then the demographic data is there. Now there's some information that we're only going to track internally. So there's other data on the dashboard, and we'll make that available to you, board, but will not be available to the public. Things that we believe that we want to track that are important. But these are the major areas as we go through this. Now high school, I'll try to just, again, a lot of data. Reading, 62.7% at the high school level, are reading at level or above. Look at the grades, the credits earned. These are the percentage of 9th grade students earning all credits per quarter. That was, again, second semester 2012. So what we're doing is we're taking the most recent data that we have. So you go back and look at the end of last school year, 65% of our 9th graders in our district were earning all credits. They were not failing one class. 2/3 of our kids. As 10th graders, it's 63%, 11th graders 64%, and seniors were 61%. We want that to be higher. We want our kids passing classes. By passing classes, that means they're earning their credits, and by earning their credits, that means that they're going to graduate. So those percentages we believe should be higher. You can see the end of course exam information, again, by algebra and English 10 in particular, and you can see what we believe where we need to be in those regards. Growth model information is there as well for you to look at. College and career readiness. Look at the percent of students enrolled in AP courses. As a district, it was 18.3%. State average, I believe, was like 13.7%. So we're exceeding the state average, which we've taken a lot of pride in AP courses in our district. The percent earning 3+ on AP exams, 26.7%. That's an outstanding number. It may seem low, but compared to the state, that's a high number. We have a district goal to go even to higher heights, though. We want kids, if they're going to take AP courses, we want them passing with 3 or higher. So I think it's commendable where we are compared to the state, but we want to push the envelope and go higher there. So then you see the average student scores on ACT and PLAN and so on coming down the line. Percentage of students earning academic honors diplomas. The state average is 30.4. We're at 22.7. We want more students earning academic honors diplomas. We want to be exceeding that state average, so we set the goal at 31%. Graduation rates listed there at 77.6. We want to be at 90. It's okay. All right, look at the percent of students with 95% attendance or greater. 50%. Now, that means we have a lot of kids at the high school level missing a lot of school. And we need to identify why that's happening, and we need to get that changed. Notice we went from 89 to 66, I believe it was, to 49%. That's a concern. Discipline data, as a district average, we have 66% of our kids with no behavioral referrals. Again, that's not, we'd like that to be higher. So the only way for us, I believe, to truly track, not only we need to know where we are, and we need to know where we want to go. And it needs to be out in front of all of us all the time. It has to be in our schools, it has to be on our websites, it has to be talked about at faculty meetings, it has to be talked about at board meetings. We need to be accountable to these areas because these are the areas that we are judged as a school corporation. And so we believe this is a good starting point. Will these data dashboards change over time? Maybe. The key factor is that we need to be accountable to the information on them, and we need to be tracking it. So I see us bringing this back to you as a board publicly, presenting it to you whenever we have updates to the data. Could be after every 9 weeks. Any questions on this?
Well, a comment. Again, fantastic work. This is exactly what we need to sort of get a pulse of where we are in the district, and it's going to be great to see this broken down school by school, because as you look at it, I guess this is rolled up for all the schools, the data we're looking at now.
Yes.
So as you begin to peel the onion back, you're going to be able to tell what schools are struggling, where you're going to need the additional work. But without this, you really don't. You're kind of guiding the ship in the dark. So great work. I still want to see red, yellow, and green. I think, in business we do that. It's easily looked at. You can tell immediately where the areas of concern are, and so you may want to think about that down the road. But this is a fabulous start. So thank you for the work on that, and the staff as well.
Ditto. Any other discussion or comments? All right, we'll move on to board comments. Mr. Gilbert, do you have any comments?
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. Wish them all a very Merry Christmas. Of course, this is my last shot here at these things, but I do appreciate the honor that you bestowed upon me by allowing me to serve you for these last 8 years. So I'm very pleased about that. And I'd like to welcome our new board members on board who I made a decision not to run. I felt comfortable with the leadership that we have and the people that are on the board, and I feel very comfortable with the new people that are coming on board. So I feel really good, and I'll miss it, but then I won't. But thank you very much.
Mr. White?
Well, thank everyone for coming also, and hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and please hug your loved ones, your family, your friends. Be sure you give them hugs and realize how important that is to you. Thank you.
Mrs. Kraft?
I guess I just have a question. I think we kind of skimmed over it quickly. Did we plan to hire an auto tech teacher? Now that
Yes.
the teacher's been moved, so we're going to hire someone new, are we?
Yeah, you're talking about the position at Mr. York where he's
Right.
retired? Yeah, the plan...
No, the teacher. I mean, we've moved the teacher according to the personnel report. We did not move her?
No. Mrs. Raymer?
Yeah.
She's still the teacher at the Auto Tech Center.
I thought it said we moved her to What did you say?
It shouldn't have
There was
reflected
a
that.
posting for Mr. York's position.
Right.
Okay. So she will still be the teacher there?
She's the teacher.
Okay.
I've held a meeting with her. I'm going to be meeting with Mr. York, and we're looking at the future of the program, and
Okay.
so that the intent moving forward is that, you know, we continue to grow the program moving forward.
Okay,
So
as long as you intend to keep the program.
mhm. We just need to grow it,
Yes.
just like everything else.
But Mr. York has a huge amount of knowledge in his head. If you can just sit him down long enough and get him to write that down, or have someone, Renee, write it down while he tells you.
I'm ready.
Because you're not going to find anybody that knows any more about that.
I am looking forward to my meeting here later this week with
Yes.
Mr. York.
Okay. That was, that and the sadness in my heart about our losing Mr. Sexton. I will always feel badly about that, because I just think kids need structure, and I think that's what he had. And I think we made a big mistake. I just needed to say that. Thank you.
Mr. Satterley? Oh.
Right. Okay, so that's what I... Okay, thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Now, you earned your $1 today. You earned your $1 today. You did good. Yeah, I've been waiting. It's sooner than the hair came, right?
Well, it looks like Mr. Gilbert's gonna get an award, but I'm just gonna say thank you for all the time that you did spend on the board. And I'm gonna miss your long speeches at the end of the meeting. Hate to see you go, Ernie.
Oh, my.
But thank you.
Mr. Pavey?
Well, I'd like to echo that as Mr. Gilbert and Ms. Christensen for your service. Ernie, I've learned a lot from you over the last couple of years. I learned that once Ernie makes up his mind, you're not going to move that mountain, so don't even try. So it's saved me a lot of time through the years, not trying to, get him to go another way that he didn't want to go. So, but
he always listened.
He always listened, but then he'd say thanks for your input, and that would be it. So, but again, I do appreciate your service. Some 8 years. It's a tough job, and you serve with dignity, and we appreciate your contribution. So.
Well, in light of that, as board president, I do have the honor of thanking you for your 8.5 years of service.
I forgot that is.
Legislation.
And I'm sure there'll be lots of volunteer opportunities for you, Mr. Gilbert, to continue.
Perhaps he can come back on a consulting basis.
I'll be glad to help Tom.
Dr. Mellon?
Board, again, thank you for everything. Ernie, thank you so much. Appreciate everything. I know I've only worked with you here for a few months, but I appreciate the conversations. I appreciate the support, and Mr. Pavey's right. You're a person of conviction, and I respect that a great deal. And I appreciate everything you've done for our school corporation. Also with Mrs. Christensen, the same holds true for her, and wish her the best. I also want to thank law enforcement. As we know, we've talked a lot about safety. Our parents and community have been hopefully hearing a lot of information. Hopefully it's saying the right kinds of things to help people feel better in a very difficult time. But our law enforcement officials throughout our area have been outstanding. They've stepped up. They've been visible. They've been in schools. They've been part of meetings as we're structuring how we want to move forward from a safety perspective. And Officer Settles is back there, has been as one of our school resource officers, just doing a great job for us. And so we're very lucky. We're very lucky to have the support that we have, not only from local law enforcement, but also our firefighters as well.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Let Ernie make his last
Come
one.
on, Ernie.
Second.
And all in favor? And good night.